What's up, folks? I'm Chris, your NFL writer here at Occupy Fantasy, and here I'm going to talk to you today about playoff best ball. That's right, the NFL DFS regular season has concluded, but there are still some fun ways for us to play fantasy football in a season-long format throughout the postseason, and one of the best ways to do that is in playoff best ball contests offered by Underdog Fantasy. We've been proud to be partnered with Underdog all season long, bringing you best ball drafts before the season started, bringing you some Battle Royale content, some champions or pick'em content that's been in our Discord, and the fun does not stop there. We're here to talk about how to attack the final and best contests of the NFL season here, and playoff best ball is a completely different animal than regular season best ball. I believe we had this discussion last year as well on this channel, but just as a refresher, this is a format where ADP is largely irrelevant. Your biggest concern when you're crafting a roster is to make sure that you have enough players to field the full lineup in the Super Bowl round. So let's look at the format a little bit so you guys can understand what I'm talking about a little bit further. The Mitten 3 is probably the easiest entry-level large field GPP here that Underdog has available. $5, 150 max contest with $50,000 on the line to the top finisher. Now the format here is in the first round, you're in a 6-man pod, and the top scoring team in the wildcard round advances to the divisional round, where you then have to play in a 10-person pod. And if you're able to win that one, you go to championship round with a 5-person pod, and the winners of that round will go to a 375-seat final contest. And you have to have a mix of the right players to advance all the way to the finals, and then still be able to score points in the finals. Believe it or not, it happens every single year. There are plenty of teams that advance into the championship round, and they don't have enough players, sometimes even any players, that are eligible to score them points in the Super Bowl. So we have to be mindful of that when we build our rosters. This is a 6-person draft because your first round has 6 players, right? You draft 10 total players, and you are starting 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 wide receivers / tight ends. So this is just a pass catcher spot, okay? And then you have a flex spot. So you have some flexibility here in terms of how many running backs you want to go with, how many pass catchers you want to go with. And I think it depends on the teams that you're trying to target for that Super Bowl round, how you will attack that. But just keep that in mind here. No standalone tight end position. Tight ends are lumped in with the wide receivers here. You're going to have 10 total players on your roster. You need to start, quick and dirty math here, at least 5 here, right? So you want to make sure you have at least 5 players in the Super Bowl that can score points for you. That is easier said than done, but that is the high-level strategy you need to keep in mind before you even click enter a contest, is you need to think about what your target at the end is. Let's look at some of the probabilities to advance to the Super Bowl this year. We're not as concerned about who wins the game in this format, although obviously it will be helpful to have more players from that team because they probably score more fantasy points, right? We just want players from 2 different teams that will be in the Super Bowl. And obviously, our number 1 seeds that have buys this wildcard round have the highest probability of playing in the Super Bowl. They only have to win 2 potential games versus 3 for everybody else. But it makes round 1 a challenge because you can't just concentrate on a Patrick Mahomes stack or a Jared Goff stack, because then you won't have a quarterback to score any fantasy points in the wildcard round, and you're almost certainly dead if that is the case. So that is one thing you have to keep in mind if you're targeting the number 1 seeds. I will do a couple of drafts on this show and kind of show how targeted strategy can evolve based off of what the board is doing, because I do have a preferred path to draft by this postseason. I think our best shot of being in a position to capitalize on being right is to draft slightly suboptimally. And what I mean is, let's target building around some of these teams with slightly lower probabilities to be in the Super Bowl, these teams that are roughly coin flips. So I'm basically drawing the line below the Lions here, and I'm interested in drafting a lot of players from the Eagles to make the Super Bowl, or from the Bills to make the Super Bowl. And then the Ravens, the Vikings, the Buccaneers are kind of in that next tier for me. Ravens, probably my favorite of that next group to target. I'm targeting primarily the 2 and the 3 seeds in the AFC, the Bills and the Ravens, and the Eagles on the NFC side, with some of the other players just to kind of help me advance in the first round. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. I think all of you that plan to enter one of these contests should think about what you think is going to happen in the playoffs before you draft. So I'm not necessarily saying that my bracket here is going to be correct. I hope it is. But if you have your own thoughts, I think you need to sit down and map those out before you enter a contest. So this is what I'm talking about in terms of targeting a potential build. I like building for a potential Eagles-Ravens Super Bowl. This is a scenario that I think is most likely for us to capitalize on versus our opponents because ADP doesn't necessarily follow building this way. ADP is going to follow the straight, true probabilities of who's going to be in the Super Bowl, and that's going to prop up some of these Chiefs-Lions players above the 2 and the 3 seeds in each conference. I hope that that makes sense to those of you out here looking at Underdog. A couple of different ways you can play this. The mitten, I think, is going to be what is interesting to most people that watch our content here just because of the price point, but it's a 150 max contest with 112,000 plus entrants, and that's really difficult to take down. Plus, I mean, they're all difficult to take down. You only have that one team advancing in the first round. You got a couple of different options. These contests are filling fast this week, guys, but the $25 gauntlet is a little bit smaller overall size. 2 out of 6 advance in the first round. You have to win 2 10-man pods to get into that 300-seat final. But this contest, obviously, by a higher buy-in, a little bit more money on the line here. And we're still building as if we're only concerned about the Super Bowl here, guys, because just getting out of round 1, we're still going to lose $5. You finish in that top 30,000, you're only guaranteed to get $20 back on a $25 entry. So it doesn't really matter as much. Obviously, you want to advance in round 1, but our goal is to do much more than that. So the gauntlet, an alternative to the mitten. I like some of these other ones here. The summit here, this is a 3 entry max contest. If you are able to advance, you also get your entry fee back. So a little bit higher floor there as well. Smaller field size. So I think on this video here, I'm going to use my 3 summit teams right now, and I'll talk through some of the things I'm thinking about as we see the board take shape. So you're going to be in here with 6 people, and these are all going to fill relatively quickly. See, I actually do have pre-populated rankings. I am hoping, if I get the right pick slots, to build for Eagles and Ravens primarily if the board falls to me that way. But the biggest thing is the quarterback ADP, all right? So when we look at what the field is doing here, I got the 3rd pick. That's something I'm very interested in here because your top 3 picks are going to be Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts. The field is telling us that they're pretty interested in Josh Allen here. They get a little bit of a bump over Mahomes because Mahomes isn't playing in the first round, but Allen and Jackson are going to be a little bit more popular than Mahomes in general. Seems to indicate the field actually likes these teams to outperform Kansas City, who had a little bit of a underwhelming campaign despite winning 14, 15 games this regular season. So with the 3rd overall pick, I feel pretty good about getting at least one of Lamar or Jalen Hurts, and now I can really build out and focus on my target matchup of Eagles and Ravens going all the way to Super Bowl 59 here. So when we get into the lower rounds, even the 2nd and 3rd round, the biggest thing is that ADP is completely irrelevant. You see, I actually have Jalen Hurts as number 1 pass catcher, number 1 in my personal rankings. Basically what I've done is I've gone through here. I've got the Eagles playing 4 games. I've got the Ravens playing 4 games. I've basically taken a median projection for these players based off of their usage, the regular fantasy football projection for 1 game, and I've multiplied it by the number of games I expect each team to play, and that's how I came up with my rankings, guys. It's not that tremendously different than probably the way most people are building. We see Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen went 1 and 2. I will lock in Jalen Hurts here, and now I'm hoping A.J. Brown makes it back to pick 10 because his ADP is right around that range anyway. But now I'm not even looking at ADP. I'm interested in getting Philadelphia players. Saquon with Hurts is going to be pretty hard to do, guys, because they both go in the first round. But when you get Jalen Hurts, you should be able to get at least 2 of these pass catchers, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. Goedert, ADP in the 30s. I have him ranked 7th. Again, that's because I have Philadelphia playing 4 games. And I think Dallas Goedert is ready to rock here, guys, after playing in Week 18 to get reacclimated to NFL playing shape here. So we are about to be on the clock, and I am not going to get A.J. Brown here, but that's fine. I will take Devontae Smith. All right? So now I have Devontae Smith. I've got 2 players from the Eagles, and I have players that are going to be playing here in round 1 against the Green Bay Packers. I don't have any problem with taking one Packer here just to help you get through the first round, but that's probably the max I would do here because you don't want to have too many zeros in your lineups in the second and third rounds, right? But definitely guaranteeing a little bit of floor with a game stack here would be kind of interesting. And you can think about that with the second round and the third round, right? So Philadelphia, I have them playing Green Bay, Tampa Bay, Detroit, and then obviously Baltimore. So these are the teams that I think I'm trying to target for opponents for the Eagles here. And I think with the quarterback, I'm going to be weighted pretty heavily on the Philadelphia side here as well. So one thing that I would have considered if it was still here at pick 10, it's not likely to be there. Derrick Henry as a bringback on the Baltimore side would be kind of interesting to me here. We see Andrews and Flowers have already come off the board to the Lamar Jackson owner. Their strategy obviously very similar to ours here. This player Dak is probably tilting me a little bit here because I'm grabbing these Eagles players, but I'm going to do something a little bit crazy here in terms of ADP. I'm just going to take Dallas Goedert. Again, ADP is irrelevant. I'm thinking about what do I need in the Super Bowl, and I think 4 rounds of Dallas Goedert is more important to me than 1 round of Justin Jefferson. Or 2 rounds of Justin Jefferson because I have them winning the first game. So to the context of the roster that I'm building here, that is where I want to be for this particular contest, and I feel pretty good about that. AJ in the video here, AJ, one of our Discord OccupyFantasy.com site subscribers, had some questions about how to attack this content. I'm sure that when this gets posted on our YouTube channel, he will be happy to see that that we featured his team a little bit here. So AJ's going for the Lions and the Chiefs, and I hope by the end of this contest, AJ is able to build out some players that are going to get him into the second round and beyond. And I think one of the things that I would think about there is your high upside quarterbacks, right? So some quarterbacks that I would target if I get Mahomes or Goff. I like Jaden Daniels and Baker Mayfield, both sides of that first round game in the NFC. Jaden Daniels, because he has that rushing upside, that would definitely be the floor you need before you have access to Goff or Patrick Mahomes. Back to me here. Things are getting thin on the Baltimore side, but Isaiah Likely, Nelson Aguilar are 2 guys that I probably want on my roster here. I can probably wait because we're only at pick 22, but these guys are on my list as bringbacks from Baltimore later in the contest. I love the upside of these Houston players, Collins and Mixon, but I have waited long enough to where I think I can just take Justin Jefferson and get some points in the wild card rounds to get me into round 2, hopefully. I need some running backs here, really for all the rounds. I'm not going to have access to either Saquon or Derrick Henry if I get a Baltimore Philadelphia Super Bowl. So I'm going to have to probably hold my nose and pick like Kenny Gainwell, Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell in the last round if I do think this is what the Super Bowl is going to be. But to get through the first round here, the player that I'm most interested in is going to be Joe Mixon. I straight up have him a little bit higher ranked than Irving and Jones. And so those are the guys that I'm going to target here. And I might be able to get Nico Collins as well. And that would be a nice out, probably a low-owned out. We have very, very low probability the Texans make it to the Super Bowl, just a 2% chance. But if I happen to get that result here, then it actually gives me a little bit more upside in that final round because less people will have a Philadelphia and a Houston build in the finals. So I'm back on the clock here. I'm going to take this running back that I think can help me get through the first round. And I've already got a starting lineup, I hope, that'll get me through the first round here with these 5 players. Mixon, I think, is a relatively high floor running back for the first round here. Justin Jefferson, relatively high floor receiver. And a Jalen Hurts double stack is pretty good here, guys. I feel pretty good about round 1 here. Now I'm just looking for some of my bringbacks for Baltimore that I ultimately think end up in the Super Bowl. Buffalo also has a lot of players left. If they happen to be the team that makes it to the Super Bowl, you got a lot of their pass catchers here, a lot of their backup running backs, even Dawson Knox at tight ends. So it's just a matter of your preference, guys, and how you think the bracket is going to pull out and what falls to you on the board here. But there's a lot of ways to get to those matchups here. I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. I'm going to take Nico Collins. If I get a slightly less optimal result here, guys, of the Texans defeating the Chargers in the first round, 2 games of Joe Mixon and Nico Collins seems pretty good to me right now. The Texans are slight 2.5-point underdogs at home here in the first round of the playoffs, but I think it's possible they win this game. And if they get into a game with Kansas City, then I get 2 games out of Mixon and Collins, and I think that's a pretty good secondary stack here. That has a slight chance of being there in the Super Bowl here. Single entry or a 3-max format here in this contest. I don't know how many people are going to have both Mixon and Collins on the same roster with an opportunity to potentially advance to the finals. I think I have enough floor here to get to the second round. It's weird to look at a ranking and see players like Isaiah Likely, Kenneth Gainwell ranked higher than studs like Jaden Reed, George Pickens. But we're looking at multiple games of potential Super Bowl participants versus one game of a high upside player. And I think in the second half of these draft contests, that's what matters the most. I'm going to target Likely here just so I have a Baltimore piece. I'll probably take Gainwell before Aguilar because I do think Gainwell gives me a little bit more on the Philadelphia side. And then I'll have 5 players in the Super Bowl there. I got 1 Baltimore, 3 Philadelphia players. If Houston happens to get there, that's great. But I don't necessarily think that's the most likely thing to happen here. So I want to have some of these Baltimore players in here as well. And I think Nelson Aguilar, as a secondary receiver, has a chance to do a little bit more with Zay Flowers. Definitely missing the first round, if not more than that. Kenny Gainwell is my highest ranked running back remaining because of how far I have Philadelphia advancing in the tournament. So I got him on here. And if I want a little bit more floor for the first couple, or the first round in general, Najee Harris, starting running back here for Pittsburgh. Jalen Warren's here. Brian Robinson. So there is still a little bit of floor here at the running back position if I want to add some. In round 9, I will take Aguilar here. Now I have my 2 Baltimore players. I've got 4 Philadelphia players. And that's pretty much, either way, I got a couple of different Super Bowl outs in the AFC here, right? I got Baltimore and I got Houston. One far more likely than the other. But if Philadelphia gets there and at least one of those other 2 teams get there, I'm in good shape here. There's a really, really heavily weighted expectation here, guys, that out of the AFC, it's either the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens. Nobody else really has any chance above 10% of making it to the Super Bowl. So that is the one thing on these contests I think is a little bit different to keep in mind. A lot more concentrated ownership on the AFC side on those 3 teams. On the NFC side, obviously the Lions, the Eagles are prohibitive favorites, but you see a lot of Buccaneers players being drafted. We see a lot of Vikings players being drafted. And obviously you have some high upside players in the Rams as well that the field will be taking also. These 7 seeds, you see them going late. Denver, Green Bay, not really being taken as much. Those are some opportunities for differentiation if you think they have upset potential here in the first round. Baltimore and Buffalo are the biggest favorites this weekend. Philadelphia is right behind them. So those are the teams that are most likely to be playing at least in round 2 here. Minnesota and the LA Chargers are both road favorites, but by less than 3 points. So these are effectively coin flip games as well here in the first round. What are we going to do here with our final spot? I've already traveled down this road with Houston, another Houston player. I got Mixon, I got Nico Collins, I got Dalton Schultz. I might have hit the nuts here, guys, if Houston is able to shock the world and make it to Super Bowl 59 against the Philadelphia Eagles. I like the ceiling of playing one quarterback. If you get somebody playing in the wild card round that you think can make it all the way to the Super Bowl, I'm not looking to play a backup quarterback when I draft this way. That's one other thing I want to make sure everybody is aware of. But you got to have that backup quarterback if you're playing Goff or you're playing Patrick Mahomes. It's pretty much table stakes at this rate, guys. You're going to get eliminated in the first round if you don't have any points at the quarterback position. We have a best ball live stream channel that we created over the summer for some of our NFL regular season best ball drafts, some of our NBA best ball drafts, some of our other Underdog content guys. So while I'm posting this video on the standalone Occupy Fantasy DFS channel, it's mostly just to create some awareness for you guys in case you were unaware that we have this best ball channel at Occupy Best Ball here on YouTube. I will link it in the description of the video below. You definitely want to check that out for our live streams about playoff best ball contest and any other Underdog best ball stuff moving forward. It's all going to be on that channel, so you definitely want to check that out after you're done with this particular program. Here, keep an eye on our stream schedule, Occupy Fantasy Best Ball. That's where our live streams are going to be for the rest of this week here, guys, where hopefully we'll have a little bit more of an interactive discussion, questions from the viewers, a little bit back and forth from the panel. But that's the target here, guys. We're going to definitely be doing a few of these this week to close out the postseason. So good luck this week, guys. Hope you're able to get in some drafts. Hope you're able to enjoy the NFL playoffs. And obviously hope you're able to enjoy some of these nice wild card weekend slates, division round slates that we're going to get along the way as well, especially here on Underdog with all the best ball contests, with all the champions and pick'em slip contests you can enter. There's so many options here that are available. So good luck, guys. I will be back with more best ball streams later this week.